It was Emmeline Goulden's birthday this week. You may know her as Emmeline Pankhurst. She's the face of women's suffrage, or the right to vote in Britain. You'll find it's inevitable that any mention of her name in social media today will provoke someone to start going on about white feathers. Now, what's that all about? Well, the white feather has a long history of being associated with cowardice, but especially during the First World War. It became a movement, and all over the country, some women were handing out white feathers to anyone not in uniform. This often got out of hand, and there are accounts of young girls handing white feathers to veterans in civilian clothes who had just come back from the front and had the missing limbs to prove it. There's even a story of a man on his way to receive the Victoria Cross being handed a white feather. The movement was contentious, very newsworthy, and well covered in the press. And I say that to point out Emmeline Pankhurst's involvement in it. Emmeline Pankhurst put a halt to all militant suffragette activities for the duration of the war. She called for a truce with the government. The authorities even released all the suffragette prisoners. In return, the suffragettes turned their attention to supporting the war effort. Emmeline gave many impassioned speeches urging men to join up. Did she support or agree with the white feather movement? Maybe, but here's what we do know. There's no first-hand account, contemporary witness, or period source that connects Emmeline Pankhurst with the white feather. Nothing that says she gave them out, or that she encouraged anyone to give them out. Had Emmeline Pankhurst been involved in the white feather movement, it would have been publicized. There would have been many that could have used this to discredit her. The closest you'll find is a brief mention in a book by Sylvia Pankhurst, where she says she was at a speech given by Emmeline Pankhurst where there were women in the audience giving out white feathers. But I think you'll find people in crowds doing all kinds of things in complete contradiction to the speaker, like handing out Bibles at atheist conventions or selling burgers at a vegetarian cookout. Furthermore, we have to consider this source. Although it is her daughter's account, they were estranged at the time. They had a falling out over the group's tactics, and I don't think they ever spoke again. So although it may be true, it doesn't directly tie the suffragettes or Emmeline Pankhurst to handing out white feathers. Sylvia Pankhurst definitely had an axe to grind with her mother and the suffragettes. You also have to consider the time. We can't judge people out of the context of their own time. Perhaps today you feel that encouraging men to march off to their slaughter and join up in an unjust, stupid war is immoral. And I'd agree with you. I don't think you could find a stupider war than the First World War. But that certainly was not the case in 1914. Most people supported the war and thought it was everyone's duty to participate. If you look into the content tying Emmeline Pankhurst to the white feather movement, you'll find it usually comes from those with a far-right agenda. You'll see content alongside it about how it's wrong to tear down statues of Confederate generals. You know, those guys who defended slavery. And then you'll hear comments like, who's next? George Washington? Thomas Jefferson? And I'll be damned if they aren't right. Then you see some left-wing woke fool saying, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, and we shouldn't celebrate these men. Come on, man. People are complicated. History is complicated. That's not why we celebrate these people. I've said it before, I don't have a problem with people tearing down a statue of a slave trader and throwing it in the harbor, but what I do have a problem with is the government taking it down and hiding it away. History is complicated. The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. We can't change the past. The things we know and learn about it may change, but that doesn't change it. We can learn from it, but regardless of the lesson, it has still shaped the way we are. No one's denying that the militant tactics, some say terrorist activities, of the suffragettes are questionable. No one's denying that the suffragettes were involved in recruitment drives. But I'm afraid there's no evidence that Emmeline Pankhurst was involved in the white feather movement. All that being said, the following video may seem ironic after all this. After admonishing misogynistic behavior, we'll go to a video about the man behind the woman. Let's take a look back at one of our first videos, the story of Richard Pankhurst. He's buried just up the road here. Hi, it's Paul from Wicked Acorn. We're in the Sale in Brooklyn Cemetery today. We're here to visit poor Richard. Nobody comes to visit him much these days. There weren't any great monuments made for him or statues. He didn't fight in any great battles or win a war. He wasn't a man ahead of his time. He was just a man for his time. A man in the right place at the right time. And what man could hope for more than to have these words inscribed on his headstone? Brave, noble, true, and my loving comrade. He was a great man. And more than any other man, he proved the adage, behind every great man, there's a great woman. Richard Pankhurst is best remembered as the husband of Emmeline Goulden, better known as Emmeline Pankhurst, named the most important woman of the 20th century. Thanks for watching. I'll leave a link to the full video about Richard Pankhurst in the description. If you want to help us out with the things we do here at Wicked Acorn, check out our website, wickedacorn.com.